Good morning, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tyler Shaw with Nomad Outfitters, and we have a special guest today that we want to kind of dive into some different suspension mods and something else that we changed up on this rig. We have Scott Harrington with Bilstein. Scott, thanks for coming out, man.
Pleasure, man.
Yeah,
appreciate being here. Beautiful Red Rocks, Colorado. Absolutely beautiful this morning. So appreciate being here. Love talking about the shocks and love being out here doing it.
Well, appreciate you coming out. So, like, to give a little bit of a backstory, we had Bilstein 8100s on this. We talked to Scott. You guys just came out with the 8100 dual speed adjustment setup, so we got him on this rig. Man, I could tell a big difference already. So
that's the idea. Yeah, the 8100 DSA, and that's exactly what it stands for: dual speed adjustment. And that's kind of the latest and greatest for the JL and the JT. We have those out. We have several other applications, but yeah, the DSA just does it. It's a dual speed adjustment, so it allows you to have high speed and low speed compression adjustments. And especially for a vehicle like yours, it's been modified pretty significantly. That's where really the benefit comes in. It really allows you to dial in those shocks and get them to perform as best as they can with certain vehicle modifications in place.
So you're talking about like with like body roll and stuff. If you put a rooftop tent on, or if you do something like we did here, you can kind of further dial it in. If you got the low speed body roll or how it's riding going down the highway, you kind of change it.
Yeah.
Or variable weight for that sake. If you have a loaded down going out to camp, if you're driving 70, or if you're doing washout roads, you kind of get it further dialed in.
Yeah, exactly. And like you just said, you used to have a tent up on top of this. So as you change that, you said, well, I'm taking the tent off for the winter. You're changing the way the vehicle is going to ride and handle. So having the adjustability on the shocks will allow you to, like I said, just tune that thing into where it needs to be. And that's kind of the key factor too. I mean, Bilstein, we take a lot of pride in the ride tuning characteristics of our shocks. The 8100, without the DSA, is very well tuned, but it is tuned towards a vehicle that it's going to have a lift on it, but it's going to be largely kind of a stock configuration of the vehicle. So like we said, as you get into doing these different types of modifications, yes, you're going to be changing the weight, you're changing the center of gravity, you're possibly getting into an even larger heavier tire and wheel package than we may anticipate. So yeah, the ability to be able to dial it in just allows you that much more freedom and really fine tune it to your vehicle and specific.
Perfect. Yeah, it's pretty hard to dial something in right out of the box with how people modify their rigs and how they make them more theirs with adding different components, different weight, and different spots of the vehicle. So
yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. And that's it. And the 8100s are fantastic in that respect. I mean, we do, in terms of the adjustments, we do have basically a 10 setting high speed adjustment and a 20 setting low speed adjustment you can dial in there. The standard 8100 series shocks, they're essentially set up in the mid-range. So without that adjustment in there, you're basically like what the DSA would be, kind of set right in the center position. But from there, having the dual speed adjusters allows you to dial it back or add some in. And one thing to kind of clarify, I guess, when we're talking a high-speed adjustment or a low-speed adjustment, just to clarify that, it isn't necessarily about how fast the vehicle going or how slow it's going. It's really talking about the shaft velocity, how fast that shock is actually moving. So, when we're talking low speed, as you mentioned, body roll, just those little sways and things of that nature, you can adjust that low speed setting to accommodate that. High speed is going to be more of like the G outs. If you're going off, getting into some big whoops and you're really moving that shock, working it fast, that's where that high speed adjustment is going to come into play.
Nice. It's also very easy to adjust. And so if you are, and one thing that we've noticed, if you do go out and you're in Moab doing slick rock, or if you are in Baja doing something, it is very easy to get out and make those adjustments.
Absolutely, and that's something we've done, especially with the shocks. And when you get some closer ups on this, you'll see it's actually very clearly labeled too. So it tells you exactly what knob is doing what. Very easy to grip onto these things. Plenty of handhold on there. So even if you're wearing gloves, you can get in there and adjust these shocks. So. Lots of good features to them, and I'm happy to kind of go into more of the details on them, or whatever.
Well, I would love to hear. I mean, I've known about Bilstein forever, but why Bilstein? Can you give us some history of the company?
Oh yeah, love to. Yeah. No. And I guess that's the first bit of morsel of minutia there is how to say how to even say the name. We hear Bilstein a lot, and hey, we can Americanize it, I guess, do whatever. But technically, it is Bilstein. Company's been around and hopefully those watching are familiar with what Bilstein is, but been around for about 150 years. We originated, we designed, we developed and patented the very first monotube shock, and we patented that design and developed it. So
Sure.
A monotube shock, obviously it helps to kind of control the cavitation, the foaming, helps the shock run a little bit cooler. It's pretty well adopted now as the go-to for a high-performance shock, and Bilstein is the ones that developed that whole technology. So back in 1955. So we've been dialing it in and kind of perfecting it for the past 70 some odd years now, and no other company can really say that. But probably the biggest factor that separates us from others is, like I mentioned previously, the ride tuning capabilities that we put into these shocks. We don't just go with a generic valving based on vehicle weights and dimensions and things like that. We literally have somebody that goes out there, test drives these direct fit applications, and actually make sure that it's like, does that feel right? Does that not feel right? Do we go on and change the tune, change the valve stacks? Ride tuning specific to the vehicle, and not just to the vehicle, but even if it has a different package, if it's a crew cab versus a regular cab, if it has a diesel motor or a gas motor, if it's a certain trim package that carries some additional functions. So we really nail it down to the specific vehicle that shock is going to be going on to. And a lot of that goes with the fitment of the shock too. You'll see it, this is our new 8100 that we have on this vehicle. Actually, it gives a good example of that direct fit. This is actually for the back of a JL, and you can see on the JT it has kind of a totally different application. It's got a piggyback type reservoir rather than a hose type of reservoir. Again, we found that, okay, that's going to be the better fitment for the JT. It has the Gladiator has a different rear suspension than the Wrangler does. So.
Sure.
We dial in these specific to that vehicle. This, you can see, it has some proprietary hose fittings here. There are banjos to keep them nice and tight. And just where we even position the knobs for these applications, so you can actually get in there and reach them in an effective manner and not have to crawl under the vehicle to try to adjust your shocks.
Sure.
Bushings are all, this is like a vulcanized rubber bushings. You can even see it has an offset sleeve vulcanized right in there, again to help clearance for the frame contact and to position that shock where it needs to be. So, and the vulcanized rubber, very long lasting. It'll help you reduce some of that noise and vibration and things of that nature into the cab too.
Sure. But you were mentioning earlier, it's Bilstein's a German company. All these shocks we have laid out and on the vehicle are made here in the USA.
Correct. Yeah.
But the German engineering has never been something that's been frowned upon.
You don't look down on that. No, yeah. we're proud of that. We are Bilstein, again, going into kind of why Bilstein. We are OE applications on the likes of Mercedes and Porsche, Volkswagen, names like that really carry some weight, that really are just as dialed in as we are to the perfection of their craft. So certainly, it is. We're proud of the fact that these performance shocks, they literally are built here in the States. They're built in our factory in California. So
and that's probably something to touch on too. Is people hear performance shock, they think, okay, well, I'm not racing. I don't know if I need a performance shock. People hear performance shock, they're like, well, it's going to wear out faster. And that's something that I've been really impressed by at Bilstein is, we finally got out of you guys that the rebuild interval, which all of these are rebuildable, is somewhere around 100,000 plus miles.
That's correct.
So
yeah.
you aren't paying that much more for something that you're going to be happier with and something that's going to have longevity on its side.
You nailed it. Yeah, it is. Generally, we figure around 100,000 miles, and yes, they are completely rebuildable. They are customizable too. If you do have a very outside the box application, you can get in, change valve stacks. You can rebuild these. The seal packs are a military grade seal pack on them. Very unique in the fact that really as they wear, they actually tend to grow, which helps to tighten that seal even further. So yes, very, very proud of how long these things are going to last, and certainly get good performance out of them that duration. But it is a performance shock, so if it comes down the road and you do want to, do a rebuild, do some kind of change up to it, you certainly have that capability.
Awesome. Well, we've been talking about the 8100. Let's dive into the 8112. That we do a lot of Toyotas and Fords and other platforms that we love to build on, but your 8112 is something that we brought into several of our builds as well. And you're looking at 3 stages of compression, 2 stages of rebound, 3 pistons.
Yeah.
You guys kind of redesigned of how a shock or a coilover is designed out with like a borderline built-in bump stop as well. Larger cavity, larger diameter than what most are.
Yeah.
You packed a lot of engineering into something that we've been very impressed with.
Yeah, no, and it is. There's a lot of engineering that goes into it, and you touched on several features that, the first, I guess we should mention, the body, this is a 2.65, the 8100 is a 2.65 inch diameter, so 60 millimeter, and shaft size, you're about 3/4 of an inch on your shaft. So, very good, robust equipment. And as you mentioned, getting into the 8112s, that's essentially where you get into your strut applications. So the Ford Bronco, the Tacomas, things of those nature, yes, we do have plenty of applications for those as well, and plenty of the 8100 series stuff coming out for, even more and more applications.
Sure. Well, perfect. That's all good information on these, and we've touched on longevity, we've touched on the build quality. The Germans are proud of their engineering with everything that they look at. You guys are also standing behind the product, and so what about warranty?
We do. It's a great question, and we do. We offer a 2-year warranty, and that's on the performance level shock. We are very proud of it, and it certainly is something that we will stand behind. We have customer service agents that are available that you can handle things directly, or certainly going through respected dealers, you can get the same experience.
Perfect. That's not. If somebody puts 100,000 miles on the rig and they're like, hey, this thing is worn out. So it's something, if something breaks, if it's a component issue, you guys are there to answer.
Absolutely. And certainly, if they are, like we mentioned, the tuning and the rebuilding of it, if they do need some guidance just as far as getting a tune done to it, we certainly have those components and the resources available to help with that as well.
Perfect. Well, should we take it for a spin and kind of see what the DSAs are all about?
Love to.
Perfect.
Always up for driving in a rig like this.
All right, Scott, thanks for coming out, man.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, well, we kind of opened the compression adjustment all the way up on this one, and so you could automatically feel a little bit more body roll.
Yep.
It doesn't feel as dialed in.
No, you don't, and that's it. We're wide open now, and even just going around the corners, going around the little dips, you kind of have that little bit of that wallow thing going on, and like right there, you can kind of feel that lean into the corner a little bit more than you'd want.
Well, and kind of going back, you nailed it right in the head with what you're talking about. You guys get them dialed in for more or less like a factory rig. You could change up on your front coilovers and everything. You could change up, spring rates and go with a stronger coil, and kind of focus in on adding that front bumper and dual battery system and winch and air compressor and whatever else you're going to add, and kind of factor that weight in. But having that adjustment gives you a lot more flexibility of getting your rig more dialed in.
That's it. It's really for the ride tuning and the shock connoisseur, when you get into these adjustable units. And Bilstein offers plenty of applications from, a direct OE replacement to just a mild performance upgrade for a stock vehicle. But once you start getting into like our 5100 series, those are, again, valved and they're tuned specifically to a lifted or modified vehicle application. So they will have different valving, different dampening characteristics going on that premise that, okay, well, it's a lifted vehicle now, or it's got a heavier tire and wheel package. So as you get into 5100, the 6100, the 8100 series, it all just kind of increases in terms of the level of options, and whether you get into remote reservoirs for additional fluid and additional cooling. That's something we didn't really touch on. That is part of the 8100s, or that remote reservoir, and certainly that generally allows you a little more shock travel. It allows the cooler fluid. It really helps to, again, up the performance level of the shock.
And with that, you're talking about separating your nitrogen from your shock body, and nitrogen's in the resi, and you're packing more oil and keeping everything running cooler.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, it's a nitrogen charge that we have on there, and again, that helps with in the monotube unit. When you couple the reservoir, that internal, we call it dividing piston, but industry you kind of can hear it be called a floating piston, internal floating piston, an IFP. And we position that in the reservoir, so again, that allows a little bit more oil, allows us to not have to run quite as high of a nitrogen charge, and it allows the shock itself to maintain its full travel, whereas in a non-reservoir application, that floating piston is inside that shock body, so you do have to compromise a little bit of the shock travel in a non-reservoir application.
Makes sense. Should we pull over and kind of adjust the compression and
Sure.
see if we can get a little bit more dialed in?
Yeah, and you can kind of feel even these little ruts. I mean, you can kind of catch that. It has kind of that little hoppy feel to it, and and certainly if you got any higher speed and really dove into a corner, I think you'd see this body roll significantly.
Fair enough. Let's get it adjusted. We did 5 on the 5 and 10 on the adjustments, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So
okay.
5 on the high and 10 on the low.
You can already feel a more planted feel to it.
Yeah, right. And that's so the total. It's about a 40% change in valving if you go from. Yeah. See, I mean, that even coming off of that little riser, it corrected itself much quicker. But it's about a 40 from minimum to the maximum. You're talking about a 40% change in valving, which is very significant too. I would bet. So right now, like I said, we're kind of right in that middle range of your valving, and I would bet with the extra weight of your camper on the back, I mean, we could probably dial it up even a little bit more, especially in the rear, on the low speed.
And maybe just a little bit more in the back, you think? Mm-hmm. Keep the front as is?
Yeah, you might. I mean, with the winch on the front too, I mean, you might help to, further bump that one up as well. That's the beauty of it, though. It's so easy to adjust, and it's such an intuitive thing, and it really, each vehicle is a little bit different, and that's really where these things shine, having that ability. Like I said, though, if it's a relatively stock-ish application, I mean, obviously the 8100s are going to be designed for a vehicle and valved for a vehicle with a lift, assuming all those factors, but if somebody is looking to just kind of trust Bilstein and their and the tuning of our engineers, the guy with the golden ass, trust his tuning, then really the 8100s without the adjusters are going to be a very, very good dialed in application.
And you're talking about a little bit like it's a couple $100 difference.
It is, yeah, just a couple $100 less for the non-adjustable version.
Okay, and then one thing we didn't touch on is the coating on on your shocks, and kind of we talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, it's a relatively new coating that we have on these units. So the shock itself, it has a base of a zinc coat, which is pretty familiar. A lot of people see the Bilstein shock and it's that zinc finish. So these have that zinc finish, but then they've also been coated with what's called an Evo Gray finish, and it again just kind of gives an extra layer of protection. It is 1,000-hour salt spray protection, and really kind of helps them look good for days and days to come. We noticed that with the zinc finish alone, especially in these Colorado winters and all the mag chloride and all the dirt and all the stuff they spray on these roads. It really can make that the zinc finish look kind of chalky after a year or so. So this finish on top of that, just an extra layer of protection.
I like it. Yeah, these have already gone through. Yeah, I appreciate you sending them out to us. But they've already gone through one pretty brutal snowstorm where they've already been hit with mag chloride and everything that Colorado likes to throw at these vehicles. But I mean, they're cleaned up. They definitely look brand new again, and so it's definitely a good coating on them. Yeah. Well, one thing I mean, it definitely feels better. One thing I noticed was a little bit of kind of wheel hop a little bit in the back, just with the extra weight in the back, and so maybe do a little bit more of an adjustment on that, and I guess it felt pretty dialed in.
Yeah. And that's really like we've said, it's having the extra weight on there. Once you start modifying your vehicle, hey, we got to start somewhere with our shock tunes, right? And then from there, everything changes depending on what you add on or subtract from a vehicle. And having the ability to then fine tune it, like I said, that's for the shock connoisseur. We've got the adjustability covered.
Well, I'm extremely impressed with, you guys have mixed the longevity factor with the performance adjustment that you have with them. And it's not like, we're not going to name other shock manufacturers, but some are as low with rebuilds as 27,000 miles. They actually want a full rebuild on them, and you guys are kind of going up into 100,000 plus.
100,000 miles, yeah, on a performance level shock. It's definitely not a just an OE, replacement. It's a performance level stuff, and to get that kind of mileage and longevity, and stand behind it with a 2-year warranty, it's doing something.
I'm impressed. Let's adjust the back a little bit and see how it does. Okay, let's see. So we added 3 more clicks of adjustment on the low end. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All
Yep.
right. Let's see what
Just on the rear. We're gonna try to.
Oh man, you can already tell.
Right.
It feels good.
Yeah, even just that simple corner, it definitely doesn't have that lean as much.
Yeah, that's a carnival ride right there. Well, perfect. Well, Scott, thanks for coming out. I loved going to the Bilstein. We've always been a firm believer in your products, and we will continue to offer it as one of our top end options for builds, and looking forward to seeing it on multiple platforms and seeing what else you guys come out with for some of the platforms we keep on hounding you about.
Love it. Yeah. Next time we go play off road, is it a deal?
I like it. Thanks for coming out, man.
Likewise.
Bye.